Hi, I'm Matthew Herzberg, and this is the Myopia Mindset. This is your weekly check-in for all things inspiration, education, and motivation on your path towards success with myopia management. And speaking of the education part, this continues my series on the Road to Vision by Design 2025, where we're going to be highlighting some of the more noteworthy lectures, events, and speakers that are happening at the conference, because Vision by Design is the Super Bowl of myopia management, and you definitely need to be there if myopia management is your thing. It's taking place October 22nd through the 25th, and you can find out more information at AAOMC.org. And we're going to be doing something a little bit different for this episode, because I have assembled the elite team of core Bootcamp faculty, and they are going to tell you all about Bootcamp, each one of their different lectures, what Bootcamp and Vision by Design has meant to them, you know, from the beginning and even up until now, and why you should stop considering as to whether or not you're going to go, and go, because it's the best meeting in eye care. So I'm going to go right down the list here. I'm going to start with Dr. Dwight Barnes. He's from Carey Family Eye Care. If you get up early enough on a Saturday morning, you can find him running out on the American Tobacco Trail. Dwight, I've heard you make a mean chili. Is that true?
I do.
What's
It's a specialty of mine. I made the mistake of bringing it in for a potluck at the office now, and they are asking for it 3 or 4 times a year. So I gotta plan well when I'm gonna put the time into making that and then bring it into the staff.
Anyway, we can get some at Vision by Design.
You know, it's not a non-zero chance. Maybe when we were in Texas last year would have been the time. Texas feels like chili. I don't know, but they probably like chili in Florida too. So
yeah, I've always wanted to try a mean chili. We also have Dr. Cheryl Chapman here. She practices out of Gretna Eye and Aesthetics and is the co-founder of Peak Pro. Cheryl, welcome back to the podcast. How are things going with Peak these days?
It's good. It's growing. We are kind of innovating new things all the time and bringing in some new strategic partners. We're excited to help support offices in helping their patients have compliance with the prescribed care regimens for their specialty contact lenses, is also for their dry eye treatments. So I'm really pleased with the progress we've made.
Yeah, awesome. Matthew Martin is here. He's our returning champion from Auburn Optical. He's an avid board gamer. He turned me on to a game called Lords of Vegas, which my family plays every year on my brother and his kids. Matthew, is that still your all-time favorite board game? What are you into these days?
Nothing gets more table time than Lords of Vegas. And when it's 2 a.m. and everyone's had too much to drink, that's the game where everyone is up yelling, rolling dice, and getting excited. How can you not want to have a good time? It's as simple as that.
Love it. Dr. Paul Levine is also here. He's on the panel. He's an avid New England sports fan. Paul, you got to be excited. The Boston Red Sox just swept the Astros. I bet you're elated.
Well, you know, for half the season, we couldn't, nobody could stand the team. They were, the worst thing ever. And then all of a sudden, you win like 10 games in a row and everyone's back in the pennant race, so we're very that way here in Boston.
Awesome. And we also have Dr. Brianna Rhue. She's back with us. You know her from Dr. Contact Lens and West Broward Eye Care Associates. She wrote a great little book called The Eye Pitch. Brianna, is that available now? How do we get a copy of that?
Yeah, so connect with me on LinkedIn. It's my gift to the industry to help us all start thinking like CEOs. And that's what Vision by Design really helped me do in the myopia management space really early. And yeah, just reach out to me there, and copy's yours. And you can also stop by our booth at Vision by Design too to get up your copy, because it's in my hometown, guys, like backyard, West Palm. I don't actually have to get on a plane and get stuck in South Dakota and all the things you guys get to do to get here.
That's right. That's right. And don't forget, you're the shark.
You got it.
We also have Tom Weshefsky. He's here from Carolina Forest Family Eye Care in Myrtle Beach. Tom is like the original myopia podcaster with the ortho-k podcast. He's also into hiking and sailing. Tom, where is your next adventure planned?
Well, the last one was in Denver at Rocky Mountain National Park, and we were climbing an 800 vertical foot face, which was pretty cool. I like hanging out on the edge, but this December we're not climbing. We're going under the ocean, so we're not going up. We're going down. We'll be diving in the Caymans. So,
Oh, wow.
looking
Yeah,
forward to that.
that sounds awesome. All right. Well, we are going to jump right into it. I'm going to start with Dwight because he's a co-organizer of Bootcamp. Dwight, I remember when Bootcamp was half a day and we were struggling to make more room for it in a whole day. And then it became 2 days and now it's multi-day event. So let's give a quick overview of what Bootcamp is and its appeal for the industry.
Well, boot camp is the brainchild of Dr. Caroline Kalki. So she's somebody else who's been involved with Vision by Design for a long time, and going back in the days when Carrie Herzberg was the president there for quite a long time, and she had a passion for. With all the education that we have, and Vision by Design's always been cutting edge. You come in, you learn the latest, the most up-to-date information possible. But there's all the people out there that need to learn the basics, right? And you need to start somewhere. Ortho-k, just like any specialty lens fitting, can be a little intimidating to people who have never done it before. And it helps to be able to get a really clear understanding of the right way to do it before you ever start treating a patient. And back in the day, ortho-k was the only way we did myopia management. And then gradually over time, we've added some soft lens options and atropine and things like that. And but a lot of us, like myself, we do mostly ortho-k. And yeah, there's a lot of people who they're hesitant to jump in because they're intimidated by the prospect, and it doesn't have to be. So the idea, if I understand from my conversations with Caroline, was really not just teach people how to do it, but really teach them how to do it the right way. Teach them how to understand the concepts behind it. Why does ortho-k work for myopia management? What can you manipulate to be more effective at correcting their vision, to make it more effective at slowing myopia progression and things like that? So she started it, and you're right. It just was like this little tiny program right before the main session of Vision by Design started. And then hopefully people would get a nice background information there and would stay through Vision by Design and then learn some more complex concepts. And it got more popular and it got bigger, and we realized there's a lot more information that we can impart to people. And so, yeah, gradually over time, I had been involved as a lecturer, and she started bringing me in and kind of sharing the hosting job with me. And so I'm very honored to have been asked by her to help host it. And so it's a lot of fun for me. I know it's a lot of fun for the attendees and for everybody else who lectures there. And I think it's a really important part of Vision by Design.
Yeah. Definitely. Paul, you once called Vision by Design summer camp for optometrists. And you also said if anybody thinks optometrists are boring, they've never been to Vision by Design. And I think that speaks a lot to the energy of Bootcamp. Can you describe that sentiment? Like, you are coming to an event where you are shoulder to shoulder with your people. I remember Brianna's first boot camp. I remember Cheryl's first boot camp, if I remember correctly. I think I also remember Dwight's first boot camp, if I'm not mistaken. So you got a lot of like amazing speakers in our industry, a lot of people who have come through boot camp. Like, what's the secret sauce of it?
Well, first of all, it's very cool when you meet people in person that write textbooks and publish papers, and you're standing next to them and sitting next to them and lecture, and it's like, it's kind of feels a little bit like there's some celebrity personalities there, and you're sort of fortunate to be in their presence, but then you realize like they're so approachable and like just happy to be there, and so I think the thing that's the most interesting and exciting about not just Bootcamp, but Vision by Design in general, is just how willing everybody is to share their best practices. Nobody ever feels competition. Nobody ever feels, we feel like we're all in this together, like we're a team. And it just so happens that, my team is based out of Boston, and Tom's team is based out of, Myrtle Beach, but we're all doing the same thing for the same reason, and so I think that's what makes it so interesting. And the fact that it's got not singular focus, but a narrow focus, is, you're going there for a specific reason, and you're going to get what it is that you want to get out of it over and over and over again, because it is a more narrow focus than a very broad, meeting. So I think that lends itself toward the excitement of it all. But the thing is, when you from the stage, especially boot camp, when you're standing on the stage and you look out and people aren't on their phones and people aren't thumbing through a newspaper, and people aren't falling asleep, like they're literally staring at you like on the edge of their seat, and they're taking pictures of your slides with their cameras. Like they're so excited to be there that becomes infectious to the people that are on the stage, because the people that are in the audience are just like blown away by the whole thing. And I think that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah. And Tom, you're part of the original pedigree that established this tradition for Vision by Design and boot camp. Was that always what it was meant to be from the beginning?
Well, as Dwight said, boot camp was really Dr. Caroline Kalki's brainchild, but I'm its stepfather. And she got the ball rolling, but it got to be so big when it went beyond a half day, she needed help. So that's where I jumped in. And we grew that a lot. And I think that the thing that makes it so different than any other conference, I mean, both Paul and Dwight sort of tattered around the edges of it just now, but it's that energy that anyone who comes to Vision by Design, like they never went to a meeting like that. So many people are really into it. And as Paul said, everyone's willing to share. There's no holding back. And you could sit at the bar, in the evening next to somebody who's quite famous and well known, and they're willing to share everything with you. I think that all comes from the roots of ortho-k. There was a time when if you admitted you were an orthokeratologist, you were kind of considered to be a bit of a wacko, and you were doing dangerous things. It all stemmed from a journal that was an article that appeared in the journal Ophthalmology in 2004 about 6 children in China who had some issues with ortho-k and had corneal ulcers, but they never managed to say who fit them, what they were fit with, if they were really ortho-k lenses. It was just somebody sleeping in a GP lens. And the professions, organized optometry, organized ophthalmology, basically harped on, you can't be doing this, you're damaging eyes. And those of us who were doing it, you had to be kind of a zealot, just like your dad. I never met anybody who had ortho-k built in his DNA more than Carrie Herzberg. But those of us who were originally doing it, you had to be a zealot if you were willing to. And we all learned through trial and error because there was nothing like this. So when we realized we had something great, it was time to teach others. And boot camp really was just a natural outgrowth of that. And, it was something that I gravitated towards years ago. I think about the 4th or 5th year in, I joined Caroline to help her run it, and I did it for a decade. It was great. Dwight's my replacement. He's doing a great job. So kudos to you for that, Dwight. Boot camp has been great. It's changed so many people, and over that decade, I've had so many people come back to me and say boot camp was awesome. We really, really appreciate it. We're able to put ortho-k and myopia control into practice, but it's all because we learned it here. So it's been really awesome, and I'm looking forward to this year. I think it should be even bigger and better.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of lives changed, I want to hear from some folks who have, been to boot camp, their first boot camp experience. I'm looking at Brianna Rhue and Cheryl Chapman for this. So whichever one of you wants to go first, I want to hear about what your boot camp experience was like and how it changed your life. Whichever one wants to go first, you let me know.
Go ahead, Brianna.
Yeah, so interesting enough, the first boot camp I was invited to was by Dr. Scott Pearl. I was president or becoming on the board of our local society in Broward County, and he really said, Brianna, you have to come to this meeting. I know it's going to change your life. This was 2015. It was in Orlando, actually. It's like, just drive up. It's not a big deal. Go to boot camp. And all these fellows were up there. And I came back and I drank the Kool-Aid and I did my residency at Bascom Palmer, where again, I was taught that ortho-k was bad, 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 bad. And I had all these, I had to undo that belief almost, because it was a belief that was pushed upon me, upon someone that didn't know what they were talking about. And so I trusted Scott. I went, I sat, I literally came back that day and wrote a lecture that I then went down and gave to the residents at Bascom Palmer about 2 weeks later. Because I was like, if I'm going to do this, I got to start at the top. Why not? Where else are you going to start? And then that it honestly just myopia management in general, ortho-k, this group it changed my life for so many good reasons. Because in 2015, here I am 5 years out. What am I going to count to the number 2 the rest of my life? That doesn't sound very fun. And I was just looking for my niche, and it found me and drank that Kool-Aid that you guys were all giving out there at the bar. And here we are. So it's been an incredible journey. I wouldn't have changed it for the world.
Awesome. What about you, Cheryl?
Yeah, I would say kind of a similar story. I think you'll hear this story over and over again, that doctors will talk about how it changed their entire practice trajectory. For me, I practice in the Midwest and in Nebraska, and I feel like a lot of times you'll have stuff come to the middle of the country a little bit slower than it comes to the coasts. And so I had attended a retinal training in Scotland, and met a doctor there who kept using the term myopia control. And I was like, what's he talking about? I felt very unsettled that I didn't know enough to feel like I could have an intelligent conversation with him. And so, I came back to Nebraska, and, a couple weeks later, I saw on some social media posting, somebody, another Midwestern doctor had posted, hey, my niece who lives in California was told to use low dose, or was told to use atropine eye drops for her progressing myopia. Has anybody heard of this? And I thought, well, I've heard of it, but I don't know very much about it. And I had been kind of waiting, like, oh, I'm sure my state association is going to bring this to CE or whatever. At the time, I had very little kids, so I wasn't really traveling a whole lot outside of the state to get my CE. And I just became very impatient at that point. I said, enough's enough. If my state is not going to bring it to me, I have to go out and seek it. I had never heard of Vision by Design before, but I still had the contact number for that doctor who I had originally heard the term myopia control. So I messaged him and I said, hey, I want to know more. Is there a conference I can go to? And he said, well, yes, Vision by Design. And they have a boot camp for beginners. And I was like, well, that sounds perfect. And it happens to be in a month. So I blocked my calendar, booked my tickets, and went to my first Vision by Design. And I loved what Paul said about when you're up there lecturing and you look out and the crowd is so entirely engaged. I can remember at my first boot camp writing to the point of my hand cramping. I had never felt so enthralled by learning so much new information. You go to CE sometimes and it's like, all right, macular degeneration again, glaucoma again, like stuff that, yeah, you want to know the updates, but on those topics, so much already that you're only just learning a few new bits here and there. But with regards to myopia management, first of all, if you're not heavily involved in it, it's a ton of information. So you are on the edge of your seat the whole time. And even if you are involved in it, it's changing at such a breakneck pace that you really want to be attending year on year to get all the new information. There's so much new stuff coming out all the time. So yeah, it just blew my mind. Like Brianna said, I fell in love. I immediately wrote new protocols and, created milestones, got my whole staff engaged, jumped in both feet, started all methods of myopia management, atropine, soft contacts, ortho-k, wanted to be able to have, full service practice on it. And it changed my practice and it changed my love of my job. I liked what I was doing, but I can't imagine doing that same basic optometry forever and continuing to be satisfied for the full length of my career. It has also catapulted me into other opportunities with other specialties, dry eye, aesthetics, stuff like that. And a lot of that stuff ties together. And I think you'll see a lot of practices who are doing myopia management are also segueing into some of those other more niche areas. So yeah, it's nothing you would ever regret to go to boot camp, because you meet a lot of people who you can share ideas with. As Paul said, everybody's willing to, share, because it's not us against the other person. It's us saying, hey, how do you do this? And how do you do that? And, oh yeah, I think that would fit really well with my practice. So I'm going to try that idea. And I'm glad that Tom kind of spoke up and said that he had a lot to do with the inception of boot camp, because I know that to be true. And if he didn't say it, I was definitely going to.
Yeah. Credit where credit is due, Tom,
Yes.
for sure.
Thanks.
Matthew Martin, you're going to be my closer for this part of the conversation. You're one of the most prolific speakers at Vision by Design, especially at boot camp. You're always bringing something new to the table for Vision by Design. I want you to talk about what an advantage it is for these new to ortho-k or new to myopia management docs to go to boot camp, because they're going to be, taking time out of their practices and have all the costs associated with that. And boot camp really does give you the leg up as far as starting your journey or cementing your journey. So I'm hoping you could speak to that.
Well, I'd like to start out talking about briefly Vision by Design itself. So I have been doing ortho-k since 2003 with the original GOS in Toronto, and like meeting all these people and meeting all the progenitors and the original people that started a bunch of this stuff. And I have been totally hooked through the bag, addicted since 2003. Like every year I go, my staff's like, oh geez, he's going to Vision by Design this year. He's going to go meet with those guys. And I would come back with this list. I would have pages and pages. We're doing this, we're doing that. Turns out we're doing this wrong. We're going to do this other thing. There is nothing more exciting than going to Vision by Design and just running into these people who have great ideas that are better than your ideas, that I can steal that. I want that. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Today I sat down after work between finishing my last patient and now and designed 2 different hyperopic translimbal ortho-k cases, because I'm doing that now, and I wouldn't have done that 15 years ago, and I would never even have imagined doing that when I graduated from graduate school. Vision by Design itself is easily the most exciting, energetic, fun meeting in all of eye care, in the best specialty of all of eye care. You can go to these other meetings. I don't want to disparage GSLS. I don't want to disparage the Vision Expos or the Academy. They're all great, but you're not going to run into doctors who are like, oh my gosh, I am doing this coolest thing. I want to teach it to you. You need to learn how to do this. Here's a better plan. Here's a better way. I'm going to tell you all the secrets. Vision by Design is that, and boot camp is where people get started. When you're in boot camp, you're there because you're excited, and everybody who speaks at boot camp is stoked. We don't get on stage. They don't put you on stage if you're not excited, right? And as a person who's sitting in the audience, that is addictive. You go to all these big meetings, you hear someone pontificate about dry eye, you hear someone talk about macular degeneration or OCTs, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the most boring thing ever. Obviously, they're not enjoying themselves. How can I possibly enjoy myself? But you go to Vision by Design and you get a Cheryl on stage, or a Dwight, or a Brianna, or a Tom, or a Paul, and they're all like, wow, we're loving it. And I think that's what everyone listening to this, if you are even thinking about going, you need to go and get excited, because we're all stoked to be there. And it's such a rush. It's the best thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I want to open this up to the groups. Whoever wants to respond to this, please start talking over each other. Let's really let our hair down on this. We keep coming back to this talking point of colleague, not competitor, which is one of the most unique aspects of Vision by Design. I really haven't seen it anywhere else. We've many of you have alluded to it or spoken directly about it, about sharing this information. Why is that with ortho-k and myopia management docs? And why is that one of the best reasons to go to Vision by Design? You'll learn just as much in the hallways as you will from the folks on the stage. And everybody acknowledges that. They'll crack open their laptops or start working on cases or talk in the bar. So whoever wants to go, just start talking. Where does this colleague, not competitor aspect come from Vision by Design?
I'll speak up first. I have a couple big thoughts on this. A, how many myopes are out there? Enough for all of us. So we don't have to compete with each other because there's so many myopes that we don't have enough practitioners. We need more practitioners that can do this. Also, rising tides raise all ships. So the more people that are actively doing myopia management, the more clientele we're going to have coming in to us and asking for it, where it is an expectation and no longer such a niche offering. We want our patients to come and ask us, not us trying to convince them. So that there's that. And then I would like to say it's just the culture of this organization that has been built over time is just a very inclusive culture. And I've never seen anything like it in any other optometry meeting. And it's just super cool.
Yeah.
One thing
definitely.
I'd like to add to that is another thing that I think creates that camaraderie and that, that lack of competition where it's very collaborative it's the passion of the people doing it. One of the things that I'm fond of saying is you can fake enthusiasm, but you probably can't fake true passion. And everyone on this call has a big passion for myopia control and helping kids. And when you have that, you do want to spread it. Again, like Cheryl said, there's not enough people doing this anyway. We know more people need to do it. And, Brianna talked about the person who got her involved. And I think most of us, except for those of us who maybe were there at the very, very beginning, but most of us have a similar story of somebody who kind of shared the gospel with us, so to speak, right? For me, I was kind of interested. I was kind of curious about myopia control, but I wasn't doing it. I'd never fit an ortho-k patient. And probably everybody on this call knows Albert Payne. Albert's awesome. He's super smart, really introspective, just super wise guy. And he was telling me about it and I was like, yeah, but does it really work? And he was like, oh yeah, let me show you. And he's like bringing out graphs and studies and sharing them and spent 2 hours teaching me. I was like, all right, you convinced me, let me do it. So I was like, well, what do I need to do to get started? And he said, go to Vision by Design. And this was a time of the year where I think the last Vision by Design had just passed. So I had a little bit of time to try to get started. And fortunately, I was able to find enough of a demand around me. And so I had fit a few patients. I kind of started to feel a little bit confident. I probably shouldn't have been. I didn't know anything yet, but I was starting to feel a little bit confident. And so, of course, I registered for Vision by Design because Albert told me to, and he's smart. And I usually do things that Albert tells me to do. And so I call him up and I'm like, Albert, I've already got some cases under my belt. I forget how many. I fit some of these. I was like, am I too advanced for boot camp? And he was just like, no. He didn't beat around the bush. He was like, no. Albert's a blunt guy. He's like, no, you're not. You need boot camp. And what I realized is when we're at boot camp and we speak to attendees, of course, there's people who are like, I've never fit an ortho-k lens and I want to learn how, which is a great way to do it. But I think we lose sight of how beneficial it is for people who have dabbled in it and have never gotten a formal education. And until you get it, you're going to repeat a bunch of stupid mistakes that do not have to be repeated because a bunch of other people already made those mistakes and learned, and they're teaching you how to not make them, right? So, you get there and you've had that story and somebody shared, hey, you really need to do this. And like everybody else said, you get really excited about what you're learning. It's all such impactful and beneficial information. And when you get back, you put them into use and you're just like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this wrong. I've been making this so much more difficult on myself. And it really takes off from there. But I think so much of it is the passion. I think that's why people have those conversations in the hallways and pull out their laptops and say, well, when I treat that patient, this is how I design it and things like that. It carries over into the exam room. I've always been fortunate enough to have a pretty high conversion rate on my consults. And I think a lot of it is that passion comes through naturally when you talk about something you care about. And the parents will see it and say, well, this guy seems to actually, really care and want to do a good job. And I think we all want to do a good job for our patients.
Yeah, definitely.
Passion, Matt, comes really from the laser focus that you're going to get at Vision by Design. It's not, it's not that smattering of dry eye and glaucoma and a little bit of everything. It's not a smorgasbord. It's just laser focused and go really, really deep. It's easy to get passionate about something you go into deep. If you're just sort of dabbling around the edges, it's hard to be passionate about that. And
can we talk about the fact that I've been fitting ortho-k since 2003, got my fellowship in 2005, so I'm old. But I go to boot camp and I'm like, holy crap, I forgot about that. I'm going to have to go back and redo this thing that I would have told you I knew backwards and forwards. I still learned something, and I would challenge everyone on this call to look me in the eyes and tell me that you don't learn something at boot camp, some good idea that you thought for sure you knew and you realize somebody else does it better. You're like, holy wow. So not only is boot camp something that I think a new person should do, but even if you've been doing this for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever, you should do boot camp again, because it is so incredibly valuable every single time I learn something in boot camp, which is ridiculous because I've been in there 22 times basically over the years. You think I would know all there was to know, but no, there's always new things you're learning from people, even at boot camp, even at something that's supposed to be the basics.
Well, let's talk about, I've brought staff before we got on this call. Matthew, you said you're bringing staff.
Yep.
Dwight, you've been talking about that we're having a staff track at boot camp as well. Let's talk about that a little bit.
For sure. So this is actually bringing something back that existed. So if we go back, I'm trying to remember the year that the staff boot camp existed that I brought a staff member. She has retired since, but it was the first staff member I ever brought. And she was before the term certified myopia navigator, which is the specific credentials that you can get for a staff member, to show their expertise in ortho-k and myopia management. She was the person who had that role without that specific title. And it was so impactful, it was so wonderful. And she went and got so much out of it. And, so many things changed with COVID, and the meeting didn't happen one year and then it came back. The regular boot camp that it was designed for doctors can provide a ton of great information for staff. And I had a staff member in each of the last two boot camps, but this is whole next level because it leaves out the things that are not necessarily completely applicable for staff, but are more designed for doctors. And it keeps all the most important things that, the epidemiology that they should know. And, how does the different technology work? But then also things like how to discuss with patients and have those conversations and best practices for, your care regimen and everything like that, that maybe doesn't get hit to quite the same degree. Having something that is specifically designed for staff is better all the way around, in my opinion.
So I want to transition to each one of your lectures, or if you want to talk about a different lecture at boot camp, we'll start with Tom.
I talk about the ortho-k mold, all right, the anatomy of it, what the different curves are, what their functions are, what are the importance and the relationship between those curves. And then that's the first half of my lecture. The second half, we talk about designing a basic ortho-k mold for an individual patient.
So after Tom teaches you how to fit an ortho-k lens, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. What if they come back and it doesn't work? What's the next step? What do you do? Because you don't want to be losing money, losing chair time, spinning your dials, getting frustrated, having the patient get frustrated. So Matthew, Martin, and I are going to be lecturing on troubleshooting, what to do if a lens is decentering, what to do if you don't have full treatment, what to do if the lens is suctioning on the eye. And Matthew's extremely entertaining. We always get very good reviews on his lectures. And it's an absolute hoot to lecture with him because he's got so much energy and stage presence.
I'm doing a lecture with Dr. Caroline Kalki on epidemiology, which I believe it's the very first lecture now when we've rearranged things. We used to start right with ortho-k, like Tom said. And so that's kind of hitting the basics there of how massive is this myopia epidemic and why does it matter so much that we address it, right? I'm doing an axial length lecture, which is typically Cheryl's lecture, but I'm going to try to take care of that this time and hopefully keep it up to the same level of standards that she's done. I've got a lecture with Cheryl where we talk about the economics, and that's just the basic ideas of what expenses are needed to start this, and then how do you determine what's the right way to set your fees so that you can be profitable with it, and make sure that you're getting paid what you're worth, so it is worth the effort you put into it. I've got a lecture with Jonathan Schoner, who's now our current president of the AAOMC, so props to Jonathan. This is about the fourth maybe year in a row where I've lectured with him, talking about an overview of the different options we have for managing myopia. And so that's a good one, hitting kind of the big three, but then some of the other items that can affect that. And then I've got a talk with Matthew Martin that we did for the first time last year. That how to do a consult and how to answer tough questions from parents and things like that. And we've got a bunch of revamps in there to keep it very fun and exciting. So we'll have a few things to offer there.
Well, I'll be joining the Bootcamp staff again for I think this might be the third or fourth year in a row that I'll be joining Tom and Brianna to do the sort of Tom's going to talk about the nuts and bolts of the lens, and then we're going to talk about just kind of incorporating that into your practice. So that's always fun. I'd done it in the past with Dwight also, but he's busy doing other stuff. And honestly, Brianna blew us both off the stage last year. So we're really happy to be doing this one again.
Yeah. And then again, get to speak with Tom and Paul, the guys that I, again, was sitting on the edge of my seat too, listening to. So being up there, wrapping it all up is really exciting. And then also with Matthew Martin this year on how you start to build that momentum and continue to plant those seeds. This doesn't just go back and build itself. And so that's what we're going to bring, is that excitement that you bring back on Monday. Now that you've learned all of this, how do you put it into practice to now take yourself to the next level and your practice to the next level and help all those patients that you already have sitting in your chair.
If you have any questions for any one of our panelists, we're going to go real quick through contact information. We're going to start with Brianna. How can people get in touch with you on the internet?
But everyone can find me on LinkedIn at Brianna Rhue right there.
You can email me, plevine@gmail.com.
Yeah, you can email me. It's drdwight, DRDWIGHT @caryfamilyeyecare.com. Cary spelled CARY. Or you can hit me up on LinkedIn, and there aren't that many Dwight Barneses out there. It's pretty easy to find me.
People can email me at dr.w @carolinaforesteyecare.com.
My preferred method of reaching me is on LinkedIn. It's Cheryl Chapman, or Dr. Cheryl Chapman. That's Cheryl with a C.
And if you have enjoyed this episode, please consider becoming a paid supporter of the Myopia Mindset. You can do so via our Substack or by visiting myopiamindset.com. If you think myopia management is the best thing ever, then please consider supporting what we're doing on this podcast. You'll get extended versions of every episode. You'll get a bonus episode every single month. Share the love as Brianna is doing. And that's it for this episode. If you are not convinced to go to Vision by Design and Bootcamp, I don't know what it'll take. You've got great folks like the people on this call. You're going to learn so much. You're going to get fired up. It's going to change your life. So October 22nd through the 25th, AAOMC.org is how you register and learn more. Definitely go check it out. All right. We will see you at the next one.